Now it's time to start working on our player movement, because right now we can click play, but nothing will really happen. Also, I think our player is a little bit up in the air, so I'll just select my player and take it down so that he will be on the ground. Okay, very nice. Anyway, how to move our player? And by the way, please make sure that your player is positioned like this. So you see it has arrows, and right side should be represented by blue arrow, because otherwise you need to modify our scripts and it might be confusing. So to avoid all of this, just make sure that you see our player is looking right side, and also we have this blue arrow on the right side when we select our soldier. Okay, now since it's side scroller, it's obvious that we need to move our player left and right. And when we are doing this, if I move my player left and right, look at my position on the Z. My position on the Z is changing. So it means that in order to move our player left and right, we need to change the position on the Z. And we don't care about X, we don't care about Y in this case, we only care about Z. Also, if we go in Edit, Project Settings, we have here Input Manager, and this input manager basically has, if we open this axe drop down, it has different buttons and different axes. For example, it has horizontal axe, and as you see, it also has buttons automatically assigned. So for example, when we click A and D, our player will be moving on the left and right. So basically, in order to move our player, we need to access this horizontal input from our script. And also we know that we need to move and change our position on the Z. There is 2 points that you need to remember. So horizontal axe and the Z. So now let's open let's create our C# script. I already created one, but for you, I recommend you to first of all create folder for the scripts. For the better, let's be organized here. So let's open the scripts, and here right click, create. You can click on the C# script and name your script anything. For example, player movement. There is two simple rules that you need to remember. Start name of your script with a capital letter, and also if you are if you will name your script something like player movement, make sure not to have space between player and between movements. So it should not have any kind of space basically, otherwise you will have some errors and your script will not work. So capital letter and no space. There is only 2 rules. Okay, well, I don't need this script, so I will just remove it later. But I will open my player controller script. You can call it player controller, player movement, something like that. And just make sure to assign our player controller script into our soldier. Now, how to do it? There is 2 options. Either we can take the script and drop it into the soldier directly. And when we open the soldier, we will see this player controller script assigned. Or let me remove it for a moment. Or we can select the soldier, we can click add component, and in the search box we can type name of our script. In this case, it's player controller. Okay, now that we have our script, let's open it in Visual Studio. Now, what to do here? Well, first of all, we need to get references and get variables. Now, if you don't know what are variables, variables are just like containers. So we can store different kind of information in those containers and then simply use them into our script. For more detailed explanation, you can search simply for the C# variables, and you will find nice short explanations and examples as well. But well, as I said, they are just like containers. Now let's create container for our speed because our player will need speed. For that, we will say public float move speed. Now, if you are completely new in programming and if you don't know what we are doing right now, let me quickly explain you. Now, first of all, how to create variables. In order to create variables, first of all, we need to decide if we want variables to be public or if we want variables to be private. And I will explain you the difference, don't worry about it. Then we need to decide what type of variables we want. Again, you can find types of variables in the internet, but there is few types basically. There is floats, there is ints, there is strings, and so on and so on. Basically, floats and int are referring for the numbers, and since this move speed should be number, we are using float. But we will use other types as well during this course. And then we need to just give some name to our container. This name doesn't matter. Uh, I named it move speed, but you can name it something else if you want. But I recommend you to stick with the move speed, not to get confused then later. So yeah, and now we have variable. Now what is public? If we save the script, so Control and S or Command and S if you are on Mac, and let's go back in Unity editor, let our script compile, and then when we select our player, you see in the script we have this move speed field. Now we have this move speed field because we made our variable public. If it was private, we won't be able to see it in the Unity editor. Basically, that's the main difference. And since I don't know what kind of move speed I want for my player just yet, for a moment I will make it public. Now let's continue. Next thing we will need is another placeholder, another container for our horizontal input. So let's say, and this time let's make it private because we don't want to see it in the inspector. So we will say private float. Let's call it horizontal very simply with the lowercase h in this case. And also we need reference for our character controller because this character controller will be main thing that will allow us to move our player. Now, how to get reference for our character controller? First of all, let's say private. Then we need to say character controller simply, and then let's name it something. For example, controller. This time, instead of using type such as float, we are using character controller. It's also built in, so it will be shown for you. Now, since we are making this character controller private, we need to also tell Unity what is this character controller and what we are referring to. So to do that, in the void start, and by the way, this void start will be called when our game starts, we'll say controller equals, and we can use get component method. And here in this sign, we will type character controller. We need brackets and semicolon. Now, we are just telling Unity to, when we are using this word of controller, this container of controller, it means that we are referring to our player's character controller. And with this get component method, it will basically search in the inspector of our player for the different elements, and it will find this character controller, and it will know, oh, we are referring to this character controller when we are using the word of controller. Anyway, now in the update, what we need to do? Well, first of all, as I said, we need to get information about our horizontal input from our input manager, and we need to store that information into some container. That's exactly why we created this container of horizontal. So let's say horizontal equals, and in order to get information about our horizontal input, we need to say input dot get axis raw, and in brackets and quotation marks we should say horizontal. But make sure to type it correctly because it's case sensitive, and if you spell it incorrectly, you will have some problems. So type horizontal, and also we will multiply it to some move speed because we will need to have some speed. Now we are saving and we are storing information about horizontal input in this container of horizontal. That's the first part. Now, next thing will be to basically create new vector free for the movement based on our horizontal input. Now, vector free is just a point in the 3D space. It has three parameters, x, y, and z. And let's create vector free. Vector free is just like type, just like it was float. So let's say vector free. Let's call this one move with a lowercase m, and it will be equal when we are changing our vector. When we want to move our player, we need to create a new vector. This is how this is how C# works. We can say here new vector free, and as I said, this new vector free takes three parameters, x, y, and z. And if you remember, as I said, in order to move our player left and right, we need to change z. We don't care about x, we don't care about y, we only care about z. So for the x, we will say 0, comma, 0 for the y, comma, and for the z, what we will use? Well, we will use our horizontal. So our container. So we will say here horizontal very simply. That's the second part. And the last part will be to move our character based on calculated movement vector. So, as I said, main thing that will allow us to move our player is this character controller. And we can simply say controller.move. There is built-in method in this character controller with the name of move. And well, in order everything to work, it needs to have parameter. It needs to have this container of move parameter. So we will say move, and we will multiply it to time.delta time. Now, this time.delta time is time between frames, and we are multiplying it by time.delta time to make our movement smoother. And we can basically save this script, Control and S and Command and S, and that's everything that you need to know and you need to do in order to move your character. Now let's quickly go through the script one more time. And well, basically those three lines are main points. First of all, we are getting information about our horizontal input, and we are storing it in this horizontal. Then we are calculating our movement with this horizontal input, and then we are just calling our character controller.move method, which will allow us to move our player. So anyway, let's go back. And well, first of all, let's make our move speed to be some number. We don't want move speed to be 0. We want move speed, let's make 6, for example. And let's press play and let's see what will happen. So this is our soldier, and as you see, it moves perfectly fine on the left and on the right. It doesn't have any kind of jumping or something else just yet, but main point is that now we are able to move our character. So we can save this scene.